What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, everyone? How is this week going for you right now? Um, we are here now once again with Candle of Knowledge Redux. If this is your first time listening to this video series, video podcast, audio, video journal thing, my name is Jarvis Smith, and Candle of Knowledge is a podcast about the life and lessons of my parents and the lessons they taught me in the wake of their deaths, and how I'm using it in my life to heal, grow, evolve, and just document the entire experience. Welcome. Man, overall, this has been a good vibe doing this series. I just enjoy just like getting this out here every single week and just doing something different. Again, I like to keep my cozy vibe. So sometimes you see me with the jacket, sometimes you'll see me with a beanie on, with a hoodie on. When I'm in the crib, I'm chilling, I have the AC going. It's a little warm out here, but still, I don't mind it at all. But hey, I want to know, what are y'all reading right now? It's still the summertime reading list and all that stuff like that. Still into Darkness Take My Hand for people who've been watching my videos, but I'm also like to jump into a graphic novel. So the graphic novel that I am reading right now for this summer is an old one that I like to revisit, which is Martha Washington. In particular, the life and times of Martha Washington in the 21st century. This right here is one of my all-time favorite graphic novels. Trying to move the mic out of the way. All-time favorite graphic novels right here, and definitely favorite fictional comic book characters, superhero characters of all time. I mean, it's just the life and times of a woman coming from the Cabrini Green projects in Chicago, a fictionalized version and of it, which is actually a real place in Chicago, but now fictionalized for the story, and how she just navigates from being a person who couldn't read, write, illiterate, and just from a broken home, breaking free from a glass ceiling literally that's put over that place, and then going into the army, having those experiences there with all these different types of sexism, racism, and issues she was dealing with, and then basically goes on to save the entire world throughout her journey from aliens, computers, and just all sorts of stuff. This is a masterpiece of work created by Frank Miller, Sin City, and Dave Gibbons. Hopefully I'm saying that last name right. Gibbons, Watchmen fame. By far my favorite. I read this every single year, definitely during Black History Month because it's a strong Black female character, but also anytime that I feel like it, this is my go-to right here. So again, I wonder what y'all checking out. If not, check out this one right here. This is my all-time favorite go-to one. All right, man. This week, man, I want to talk about a topic of part of the healing process, the grieving process, and just growing, developing, right? Is talking about forgiveness, man, and how important that is for the whole entire healing, grieving, and just evolving into an adult process, man. What do I mean by the forgiveness process, man? I think that coming from my perspective is understanding when you need to just kind of let things be and let things go, and when to maybe find a place in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit to just acknowledge that, hey, even though a certain event or thing or maybe a connection with the person didn't go out the way that you did, you understand, you let it go, you move forward, and you just forgive. That was a big part of just me getting better and being better throughout this entire thing, man. I mean, like forgiveness. I mean, I talked about it before, you know, I had a choice. I could have held on to anger. I could have chose to become go down a darker path and not become the best version of myself, become toxic and negative. But that would have stopped me on my purpose, right? My journey, if I was so busy chasing revenge and seeing anger. But a big part of that too is just also allowing forgiveness, maybe not being the person where it's like, and if I'm being straight up, I always like to say, I don't like to play victim, playing the victim in the sense of like, man, how come this happened to me? How come that happened to me, man? How come I got to be the one to say sorry? How come I got to be the one to do this? It could be very exhausting and draining. There's no denying that. But sometimes I think throughout this process of forgiveness, I think that when you think about the bigger picture of it, it's like, you know what? If there's anything that's going to stop me from being a better version of myself, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to make sure that isn't in my way. And forgiveness and holding on to not forgiving someone or not for or just holding on to that desire for revenge or whatever, it can still be a thing that stops you. So allowing forgiveness in, allowing that to happen was been very instrumental for me to kind of just improve and get better and just evolve, really evolve. And I can see it both in the literal sense of the results, but also just the internal and just the figurative and just the more spiritual side of me, etc, and the mental health side of me too. Yeah, just not like holding on to those negative things and just thinking that that's going to make me a better person or makes me feel better, knowing that, okay, yeah, man, yeah, I didn't forgive that person. Yeah, I still got my 2 cents for this person. And let me make this very clear too. It's not like a sense where you're going out of your way to find somebody. And I'm coming from the perspective of, maybe you're the one who has been victimized, right? And I know that's a strong word to use, but I'm just saying you're the one who had something dirty done to them. You got played or whatever it may be, right? And it's like, you know, the person or thing or situation, whatever, they've kind of maybe gone on or whatever, or maybe they try to come back too, right? And now it's up to you whether or not you want to accept that forgiveness or whatever. Or maybe you just have a mutual understanding where somehow y'all just meet somewhere randomly in a grocery store, airport, or something like that, or a mutual setting, and you just like, man, I'm gonna let bygones be bygones, man. I'm not gonna go around and like I haven't seen this person or that situation. I've been around this entity and around like 10 years, 15 years, or even shorter than that, like 6 months, 8 months, or whatever, man, I'm not going to hold on to no grudges like that, man. You hear the old saying, man, we grown. I'm not holding on to no grudges like that. Whatever it may be, it's kind of how you get to this forgiveness. And for me, throughout the process that I was in a year ago where again I was in a position where I had to figure out life decisions I didn't have answers to, and my personal and professional sense I had to figure out answers, and a lot of that stuff could have just been held on to for anger where I'm just like, man, I'm just going to hold on to this rage, hold on to this frustration that I have, hold on to these things that I think is going to be making me better. And that wasn't the case. And I would say there was definitely some instances where I had opportunities to just forgive where yeah, it was on me to either to accept and embrace the forgiveness or reach out to some people from the past. How about that? And allow them to express themselves about what went wrong, acknowledge what happened, and vice versa. You could talk about your frustrations and what you did wrong, etc, and vice versa. And I've been in those situations, and most recently too. And I would say, if I'm being very honest about the most recent experiences, I was the one where I didn't necessarily do anything, but it's just like the individuals, they just felt like, hey, we have to go down a different path than that was opposite of you, right? And that different path necessarily didn't turn out to fruition the way they envisioned it. So now, they're humbled a little bit about that. And now they're able to understand, what went wrong and how this bet that they made against me, right? Just being honest, didn't pan out the way they did. So now it's like in that situation, right? As I just explained it, I could be like, hey, see, it didn't work out for you. Now your ass is trying to come back around and have a conversation, trying to talk, all this other stuff like that. And it can feel like that, especially if it's like a friendship that didn't go out well, a relationship that didn't go out well, a business partnership that didn't go out well. And you can kind of have that boisterous side of you, like, yeah, it didn't work out, didn't it? The grass wasn't greener, was it? And I could come from that perspective. And I think for me, it wasn't about that. What the ultimate thing that allowed me to start like being very open to forgiveness was just saying to myself, what is the point? What are you gaining by quote unquote seeing somebody else down? I think that goes back to the character thing. Is that what's in my character? Just to see somebody else down. Also, too, was just understanding that if the person or entity or situation is coming at me with respect in the sense of like, yeah, man, I'm acknowledging that I'm not perfect. I'm acknowledging that I messed up. I'm acknowledging that, yes, I made a mistake. If they can be bold and brave enough and confident enough to just admit their faults clearly and not trying to sugarcoat it, not trying to make themselves look good, not trying to be like, yeah, but I thought that. No, they really are saying, no, I fucked up. I messed up, man. It was a wrong move. Then I'm like, okay, we can start the conversation there. And it's not because it's like, oh yeah, now they're gonna be begging or whatever. Now they're no, it's just like that's that vulnerability. That's that what's the word I'm looking for? Ego death. That's I think it's important because vice versa. If it was she was on the other foot and it was on me, I would have to have an ego death too. I couldn't be a cocky, arrogant person trying to be like, man, go ahead and forgive me and let me back into your life or whatever. Come on, man, just accept my apology and let's move on. Stop with this BS. Nah, man, you gotta take accountability. That's another word I want to find too, is accountability, right? And then you see somebody taking accountability, having that ego death, and they're just being very vulnerable, sincere, and raw about their era, and they are coming to you on some true stuff. Then yes, I think for me, that's where I can start the forgiveness for me right there. I think that if it's mutual, especially if you're coming from the perspective of like, you were being authentic, you were being pure in your how you're expressing yourself, whether it be expressing your challenges and your frustrations with that person or situation or entity, or just being pure with everything that you were doing too. um and if it's kind of mutual there on both sides, then yeah, we can have that conversation. We can find a new common ground to kind of build on and stand on. And you know what, even in this forgiveness, it may not be like, okay, now we're about to start something brand new and continue on and all this other stuff like that. No, it could just be like, okay, that one conversation, we acknowledge where, the differences were for both sides, where things went wrong, and whatever. And now we can have that common ground, and we can shake on it, or we can embrace with a hug, or whatever you want to do, and move forward from there. And that can be just that, right? You don't become that person's best friend. You don't become that entity's new, person brought back on, whatever. You just kind of move forward from that situation, just acknowledging what went wrong and just knowing that there's a new respect level there, and that the line of communication, at least, is kind of, it's been you buried the hatch that way, and the line of communication doesn't have those type of roadblocks in it anymore. So if there is any need to communicate again, you know there is that clearance, there is that opening there. And I think that's the biggest thing too, because part of this process is like, as you realize, especially working in the entertainment business, it's like, a lot of people that you work with, you'd end up working with again, and you end up seeing them again somewhere along the line. So granted, you're not going to be friends with every single person that you meet, but I think if you just have an understanding of respect with every single person, you ain't asking somebody to go out to dinner, go to their holiday parties or whatever, birthday parties or whatever, but it's just like, hey man, we acknowledge each other, we respect each other, and I think that's the most common thing you can ask for in that sense. It's just like, just that respect. And as long as that respect is understood, then that's where that forgiveness can be had. Because again, to me, for me personally, understanding that, holding on to that anger, that rage, or just holding on to that vendetta that you want or whatever, or just that desire that you want to see, let's put it on the person, that you want to see somebody else down, that is not going to bring you up. That's not going to make me better. That's just for me, man. Like, that's just not going to help me out. It really isn't. It's like that isn't going to bring me any type of vindication or satisfaction, seeing that out there. I mean, granted, it's like, I'm not rooting for anyone to have their downfall or anything like that. Um, or anything like that. I think it's just for me to make sure that the person, or entity or situation that didn't go the way that I hope for, they just understand what went wrong and how important it is to not repeat those same mistakes. If not with me, then with someone else or something down the line in the future, man. That's important. That's critical. And for me too, I think the forgiveness process and journey has just been a very, revealing thing, in the sense of, it shows again what you're made of too, when you have to go back and forth with this tug and war of like your identity and what you believe in, what you stand on, and how you can utilize that to kind of help grow your character or deflate your character, bring your character down. I think that was a big revealing part too. It's just like, what are you made of when it's time for you? Are you really a vengeful, spiteful person, or are you just someone who really just wants to find a common ground, and just always want to work out the best way possible, even if it's not to try to become friends with somebody or something like that or whatever, but it's just to kind of find a common ground to kind of just move forward from this overall. Again, I think that is something that I've shown about myself. But to that point too, it doesn't mean that if you forgive that you're a pushover. And I'm a person who, if I'm pushed enough, I will have to stand my ground. I don't look to go do that, but if I have to, I will. I think that's what it is. But when you do forgive someone, it doesn't mean that you're a pushover. It doesn't mean that you just accept people for how they are, which is, if they're just being a horrible person themselves, and they're not improving, you're just accepting that. No, man, at all. In that scenario where someone is not improving and you are, then like, there's no common ground there for me. But I think that if you are accepting someone who is trying to improve and make a difference, and you know that your forgiveness will help in that process, then I'm all for that. Because again, who am I to try to keep somebody down when they're trying to get better in that sense? It can't be like that for every single person. There's just a lot of different people, but in your life that you come across, and a lot of different experiences you'll have, and a lot of different organizations, entities that you'll be a part of, etc. But I think, you know, if you don't allow just a moment of clarity for yourself to have just that forgiveness into your life, and just let it really guide you in helping you become just a better version of yourself, you're not going to get to ultimately where you're trying to go and where you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's just the main thing that I think about quite often. It's like I just can't let it be the thing that's gonna slow me down or prevent me from moving forward or just evolving the way I need to evolve, man. Like I said, that's just not gonna help me in the way that I want to. So the forgiveness journey, the forgiveness process, this road to overall recovery for me through this entire experience, through the grieving process, has been critical because again, it shows character, it shows grit, it shows truly what you're made of when no one's around, when no one's encouraging you, when no one's motivating you to be a good person, to do the right thing, or to say, or just to allow, just to allow understanding to come in. I think that's going to be important right there, too. So don't think about it being like for me, it was not, I had to just, understand that you're not being a pushover. You're not disrespecting yourself. That's another big thing that I can say too. You're not disrespecting yourself by allowing forgiveness to occur because there were some times I felt like, man, in order for me to forgive this person, that means I'm accepting that I don't respect myself. It's not that case. You're what you're saying is about yourself is that you know yourself very well, and you know that when someone comes at you with respect and humbleness and has that ego death and is being vulnerable and sincere with you, you're not going to be some spiteful person to hold something against them. Um, because again, you could be on the other side of this too. And I think that that's the one thing I keep in mind. So it just shows my character. It just shows what I'm made of in that sense. And I think that's the biggest thing that I keep in my mind when I've been going through this process. So for me, the forgiveness journey is something that at this time in my life, I've definitely understand a lot more, and I'm appreciative of how I understand it, and it's something that is ultimately helping me become a better person and helping me grow and evolve into the person that I want to be right now in front of this camera, but also the person that I know I'll be proud of that I'll become down the line. And when I think about my parents and what they taught us and what they've shown us through their own actions, I think that forgiveness is something that is very true and very real to our upbringing in so many different ways because when I made a mistake or my brother made a mistake, my parents never said, okay, we're done with you for good. And we made some mistakes. They were understanding. They gave us some very tough love. But when they saw that we were being sincere and trying to grow and try to understand where we went wrong so we don't do it again, they embraced us with their love and that respect. And who am I not to do the same thing?